The Arizona sun burned high above the desert skyline as Darrell Carter's modest SUV rolled into the parking lot of Prestige Motors, the crown jewel of his latest acquisition. The glass-walled showroom gleamed like a monument to wealth and luxury, each car inside worth more than most people's yearly income. Darrell stepped out quietly, dressed not like a man who owned an empire, but like an ordinary passerby, a gray hoodie, worn jeans, and simple sneakers. It wasn't by accident. He wasn't there to impress. He was there to observe, to see what his business looked like when no one knew he was watching. The air shimmered with heat, the smell of fresh leather and wax drifting faintly through the glass doors. Inside, laughter and small talk echoed from the staff huddled near the front desk, the kind of carefree chatter that always stopped when a stranger walked in. As Darrell entered, conversations died mid-sentence. He caught the quick flicker of judgment in their eyes, the polite smiles that didn't reach their faces. He'd seen that look before, the silent calculation of class. But he said nothing. His expression stayed calm, even kind. He wanted to know how deep that first impression ran. From across the room, a woman in a fitted blazer and polished heels approached like a storm in control. Susan, the showroom manager. Her posture screamed efficiency, her voice practiced professionalism, but her eyes told another story, one of measured judgment. "Can I help you with something?" she asked, her tone clipped, cool. "Just looking around," Darrell replied casually, his voice warm, curious. Her gaze scanned his hoodie, sneakers, and the faint dust on his jeans. "Are you shopping for a vehicle?" She pressed. "Something like that," he said. She smiled tightly. "Well, most of our inventory requires pre-qualification. Perhaps I can recommend—" She was interrupted by another employee calling her name. When she turned back, her tone was colder. "Maybe you'd be more comfortable at one of our pre-owned lots." Darrell tilted his head slightly, a half-smile tugging at his lips. "You're assuming I can't afford this place," he said evenly. Susan blinked, caught off guard, but quickly recovered. "I'm trying to save you some time." Her voice carried that sharp edge, polite discrimination disguised as professionalism. Darrell's calm didn't falter. He'd learned long ago that power didn't need to shout. It only needed to observe. Susan walked away briefly, returning with a clipboard, her armor of authority. "Here are a few options that might be more suitable for your situation," she said, her tone laced with condescension. Darrell looked down at the list, used sedans, old SUVs, and one budget hybrid. "Practical," she added. "Reliable, more realistic." He folded the paper carefully, slipping it into his pocket. "I appreciate the effort," he said softly, his tone calm yet deliberate. The words made Susan hesitate for the first time. "Prestige Motors isn't for everyone," she continued. "I just don't want to waste your time." Darrell studied her for a moment. "And what exactly makes you think I'm not your customer?" he asked. Her reply came too quickly. "Experience. I can tell when someone's out of their depth." That phrase lingered between them, sharp and heavy. Darrell smiled faintly. Interesting choice of words. Around them, a few staff members pretended to be busy, but their curiosity betrayed them. The man in the hoodie was making them uneasy, not because he raised his voice, but because he didn't. Darrell finally said, "Why don't you call the owner? Maybe we can clear this up." Susan laughed under her breath. "The owner doesn't take walk-ins. They're a very busy person." "I'm sure they are," Darrell said, pulling out his phone. "Then I'll call them myself." The smirk faded from Susan's lips as he dialed a number and spoke calmly. "Yeah, it's me. I'm at the dealership. Just a small misunderstanding." The room grew still. Employees looked up from their desks. Susan's clipboard lowered an inch. "Who did you just call?" she asked, her confidence unraveling. Darrell slipped the phone back into his pocket. "We'll find out soon," he said with quiet amusement. Minutes later, the glass doors opened and a sharply dressed man strode in. Alex, the regional director. His voice carried warmth and respect. "Mr. Carter, great to see you, sir." The room froze. Susan's clipboard hit the floor, her face drained of color. "Mr. Carter," she whispered. "That's right," Alex replied sharply. "He's the new owner of Prestige Motors." For a long moment, no one spoke. The hum of the showroom lights was the only sound. Susan's eyes darted between the two men, her earlier confidence dissolving into panic. I didn't realize," she stammered. Darrell turned to her, voice calm but cutting in its truth. "You didn't realize someone like me could own this place, right?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Every employee in that room understood exactly what he meant. "It's fine," Darrell said finally, his tone level but commanding. "But tell me, Susan, if I hadn't been the owner, would you have treated me any differently?" She opened her mouth, but no words came. The question wasn't meant for her alone, it was for everyone watching. "Let's gather the staff," Darrell said finally. "We need to talk about what kind of business we're really running here." In the glass-walled conference room, tension thickened like the desert air. Darrell stood at the head of the table, his presence steady, controlled. "For those who don't know," he began, "I'm Darrell Carter. I acquired this dealership last month. Today I came here not as your boss, but as your customer." The staff exchanged glances, guilt flickering in a few eyes. "I wanted to see how people are treated when they don't look like they belong," he continued. "And what I experienced was disappointing." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "This isn't about blame, it's about culture. Judgment has no place in excellence." Susan sat quietly at the back, her posture small, her confidence gone. "Every customer who walks in deserves the same respect," Darrell said firmly. "We don't sell cars, we sell trust." The room stayed silent until Susan spoke. Her voice trembled. "I was wrong," she said, her cheeks flushed. "I judged you, I misjudged everything." Darrell nodded. "Accountability is the start of change," he replied softly. "What matters is what we do next." He announced new policies, training programs, mentorship, community outreach, all designed to reshape the dealership's culture. "We will be known," he said, "not just for what we sell, but for how we treat people." Even Alex, the regional director, looked impressed. The same staff who once whispered in judgment now nodded in understanding. It wasn't just a reprimand, it was a lesson. A new chapter was beginning, built on respect and humility. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the desert skyline, Darrell stood outside the dealership, watching the golden light reflect off the cars he now owned. The day had been exhausting but necessary. Change never starts with comfort, it starts with confrontation. Susan approached quietly, her voice softer than before. "Thank you for giving me a chance," she said. "I won't forget this." Darrell smiled faintly. "Good," he said, "because how we treat people matters more than what we sell." As he walked toward his car, he glanced back once, at the showroom that would soon reflect something greater than luxury. Integrity. And that's the story of Darrell Carter, the man who disguised himself to reveal the truth. A story about perception, pride, and the power of humility. If this story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and share this video, because sometimes the biggest lessons come from the moments when no one's watching.